Welcome to the Heartland Cycling Network. We've got a great show today. Actually, a repeat guest. I have Eric Williams with the Papio Natural Resources District. He is a natural resources planner, but he also rides bikes once in a while. Probably not as much as he'd like to. And I know the last time I talked with him, he said that a lot of times when he does go out, he's basically always looking at the trails from a work perspective instead of enjoying the ride. And I think you really need to enjoy the ride a little bit more as well. But anyhow, I'd like to welcome Eric, and I'd like to let you bring everybody up to date what's going on in the world of the NRD and the trail system within the greater Omaha area.
Yeah, well, as you said, my goal in 2023 is to ride more for leisure and pleasure and recreation and less for work. But we do have a lot of great projects going right now. There's always things that are in design and in construction and things that were recently completed.
Yeah, well, give us an example of something like, I think it was at Western Douglas County bridge or whatever that's been completed. Talk about that a little bit. Tell us what's going on with that.
Yeah, the Western Douglas County Trail in Valley, Nebraska was completed in June of 2022, and it includes about a mile of trail from the schools in Valley. They have combined campus with all of their schools, kind of south out of town down toward Mallard Lake, Mallard Landing housing development. But also the most prominent feature is the very large pedestrian bridge over the Union Pacific Railroad and the old highway out there now called East Reichmuth Road. And so it is a two-span bridge. And the longer span is about 275 feet, and so it's a very significant steel structure when you go out and see it.
Yeah.
That was completed in the middle of 2022, and it's all done and open for everybody. It connects from the schools to the YMCA, and then from in town, south out of town. So it's a great project, and we're very glad to partner with the city and Douglas County and kind of a collection of community supporters as well. So
well, that's a heck of an investment to put a bridge over those roads. So there's got to be some more to that than just that particular section of trail.
Yeah, that was part of the Western Douglas County Trail Plan that was initiated back in about 2003. It had multiple phases, and over time, the viability of a couple of them didn't allow them to move through the full design process into construction. But now that we're done with this federal aid project, the NRD is working with the cities of Valley and Waterloo and Bennington and Omaha and Douglas County to kind of follow the corridor that's been on the metro area trails map for a number of years. Okay. So if you kind of start at the eastern edge, the West Papio Trail, it's kind of over about 168th Street.
Right.
But it's intended to follow the creek kind of over toward Elkhorn through Tahozuka Park and that little trail up to the south side of West Maple Road, and then down the hill along West Maple down to the Elkhorn River Rec area on the east bank of the Elkhorn River. And then find a way to get across the river. That's a pretty big physical challenge.
Yeah, that always is, yes.
But get from the east bank of the Elkhorn River over to the west bank of the Elkhorn River. There's a great trail on the levee in Waterloo. And then from Waterloo, across under the highway and over the railroad and continue along Maple toward Mallard Lake. And then the existing trail that we just completed up to the middle of Valley, and from Valley kind of west out of town down toward the Platte River. And so that would connect the entire existing metro network of trails to the communities of Waterloo and Valley and down to the Platte River.
That's exciting. Is there some sort of timeline when that might actually be realized?
Yeah, the NRD and Douglas County are working on the first phase from the east bank of the Elkhorn River at the rec area, kind of across the agricultural area and kind of starting up the hill on West Maple. That's about a mile long, and that is kind of in process now. There'd be a second phase kind of continuing up the hill toward Elkhorn, up to the existing pedestrian crossing at West Maple. There's a Ramble Ridge neighborhood on the north and Tahozuka Trail to the south. But the idea is that entire corridor connecting all of those different communities together, following the plan that's been laid out for a number of years.
Well, that'll be great. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
It's always nice to have some different trails, especially when they're separate from the roadways. I mean, that's always kind of nice for anybody that bikes or walks. It's just kind of nice. So, what other things are going on with trail development within the Omaha area?
Yeah, the Beltline Trail and the North Omaha Trail are both in the North Omaha community. And so Beltline Trail is being led by the NRD. It's broken down into a couple of different phases. Phase 1 was constructed last year from the North Omaha Transit Center, right at about 31st and Ames, south down to Druid Hill Elementary School. That was the first phase, kind of connecting those 2 points of community interest. And right at that corner by the elementary school is where it meets the North Omaha Trail, continues east, crosses over the Highway 75 bridge, kind of down the east side of Highway 75 and over to 24th and Lake, which is a really important part of the historic North Omaha community,
Okay.
a real cultural center. So North Omaha Trail up to kind of right there by the transit center. And the Beltline Trail will continue to the southwest. Phase 2 is going to be under construction here over the next couple weeks, actually.
Okay.
It's in Adams Park, following along the west side of Adams Park, and then the north side of Adams Park over to John A. Creighton Boulevard.
Okay.
And so, again, this is following on that historic Beltline Railroad corridor.
I was going to say that was a Beltline. Yeah, that's why it's called that. It was
That's
a
right.
railroad corridor.
And so some parts of the trail are directly on top of the rail corridor, and some parts are just kind of in the area, kind of following where it used to run, because it's not physically possible to construct directly where the rail line used to be.
Okay.
But the idea is looking at the history of a former industrial location that has been disinvested for several decades and finding a way to reinvest in that part of our community and encourage artistic and cultural and recreational and natural resources opportunities in North Omaha.
Well, I also look at it as transportational. I'm sorry. You know,
No, absolutely.
It's one of those things where I feel that there's a very strong need, not only for the recreation point, and it's very good for the community and overall for the city to realize this, that it helps basically make the area more attractive to live in. And then the transportational aspect of it, that people can actually use alternative forms of transportation to get to and from work, or wherever they're going shopping or whatever.
Yeah, and good catch on that one. I mentioned several benefits of trails, but there's so many. I didn't list active transportation, but I did mention that the North Omaha Trail and the Beltline Trail meet right at the North Omaha Transit Center.
Right.
North Omaha Trail also on 30th Street crosses where those bike lanes are on 30th Street that just underwent a road diet a few years ago.
Okay.
And when you look along the Beltline corridor, there are several different points of significant community interest. Paxton Boulevard wraps around toward North Omaha, the high school. Omaha North High School. Okay. And then as you continue south, it ends down at the, goes past Druid Hill, past City Sprouts and Omaha Permaculture, great community organizations, and goes all the way down toward Walnut Hill Elementary School. So Malcolm X Memorial Foundation, there's so many places along that corridor that if you want to get between these different locations, sometimes it can actually be difficult because the road network has kind of degraded over time. Several roads have been closed and abandoned, but the rail corridor will provide an active transportation connection between several points of significant community interest once it's
that's
completed.
Great. That's great. That's good to hear. I know before the show we were talking a little bit about one of my favorite trail segments that would like to be realized, and that's from the West Papio north.
Yeah, so West Papio, where it currently ends, you mean, on the south side of West Maple? Yeah.
Right.
So the West Papio is in a couple different pieces. There is a break at West Maple Road right now.
Right.
So north from there, it connects up through the SIDs and up to the south side of Fort Street. And I haven't been there, but I'm told that it now connects into Flanagan Lake. Have you been up to that location?
Okay.
Yeah, so the trail follows the creek. South side of Fort Street over to HWS Cleveland, and then that boulevard section continues up into the Flanagan Lake and Recreation area.
Okay.
So that's existing, but there is that break at West Maple. So the NRD is in the process of working through a design for an underpass at West Maple Road to connect the northern portion under West Maple safely and to the existing trail that you're probably very familiar with.
Yes, I was riding up there just today and came to the dead end. There's a big pile of snow there yet.
Right.
Fortunately, there's a little bit of snow out there, not too much though.
Yeah, so we're working to stay ahead of, there's a potential future bridge connection over the creek in that location, and so we want to make sure we have the trail designed to accommodate that future bridge.
Are they going to go from the east side to the west side, or no?
Everything will remain on the east side.
Okay.
Yep. And that bridge will probably take a while to get constructed because it's waiting for development to justify the need for the road crossing. But again, we want to make sure that the trail is in place and we don't miss the opportunity to have those multiple modes of transportation overlapping successfully.
Yeah. So that'll be a good connector. That'll be great. You'll be able to go all the way up the West Papio Trail up to Flanagan Lake. Now, a question further down on the West Papio, there's a lot more activity going on, at least proposed from what you were telling me.
Yeah, so there's both the West Papio connection or the Millard connection in the Millard area. That's a federal aid project, and that's been waiting because, quite frankly, I've been doing another federal aid project for a little while that's almost ready for bidding. So once we get that to bid, we'll move back and start on the Millard connection project from right by Tyson, where the West Papio Trail currently stops at the trailhead.
Right.
Go back over and under 132nd Street, under Q Street, under Millard Ave and connect to the trail on the backside of the shopping center that has Sergeant Pepper's and
the Hobby Lobby.
Yep,
Yeah, we
that's
always
it.
call it the Hobby Lobby.
There you go.
Trail end. I mean, usually I take a loop through the parking lot and I come back on the trail and go up across the bridge that way. But it's not quite as nice. You go through the lumberyard district. I mean, if you know your way, you can get around.
Right.
But it'll be so much better to be able to just continue on the trail. Of course, that one's got to switch from one side to the other.
Yes, so it will stay on the east side, or in stream terminology, the left bank. As you're going downstream, the left bank.
Yeah.
So the trail is currently over there. It'll go behind Tyson, under those road crossings, and then come up onto Millard Ave and use the existing Millard Ave bridge to get over to the trail that's currently in place.
Okay,
So it'll
okay.
use an existing structure. That'll avoid the cost of a new trail-specific
Right,
structure
yeah.
over the
Are
creek.
you going to widen that area a little bit, or maybe not? I mean, because
Probably not on Millard Ave, so that will be, and that'll be a discussion with the City of Omaha about what types of upgrades might be necessary. It'll be similar to, quite frankly, the Big Papio has a trail crossing by Toll Park and Center Street, and that is what I would say, maybe not the highest level of service of the trail network that we have, but
Yeah.
it does function.
Yeah.
And I think the key idea there would be when upgrades are made to the road surface or to the bridge structure itself, that's a great time to incorporate expanded active transportation.
Exactly. Don't make a special project out of it
Right.
if something else is going to happen down the road.
Right, and so, Millard Ave might see some upgrades in the future, and that's a great time to say, when you do that, let's also upgrade the trail connection on the north side of Millard Ave.
Okay.
Make that a
So
little better.
further south on the West Papio, what else is happening?
The West Papio was built along Harry Anderson Ave, and there's a T intersection next to Golfing Green Drive, right by the Oak Hills Golf Course. And we've seen a lot of people coming from the neighborhood down past the golf course, and there's a real well-defined goat path, or desire path, as you might call it, where people are walking through the ditch across Harry Anderson and then
Yeah.
up onto the side of West Papio Trail.
Right.
We kind of anticipated this in the design, but at the time we did not provide that connection.
Right.
But right now we are in the process of designing a specific trail access point at the intersection with Golfing Green Drive, and that will include a signal on Harry Anderson Ave, so
Oh,
that
okay.
everybody on Golfing Green Drive that wraps all the way up to Q Street, everybody in those neighborhoods can come down Golfing Green Drive, come to a safe crossing at Harry Anderson Ave, so that both people driving cars and people walking, running, and cycling can make it where they're
Yeah,
where
that
they
is a
need to
very
go.
busy road.
And,
Yeah.
and quite frankly, a lot of people speed on Harry Anderson Ave, and so
Yeah.
we do need a safe crossing to get to the trail, because there's people on this side, there's a beautiful recreation and active transportation facility over here, we just got to get between them.
Yeah.
So that's in the design right now. We expect to have that under construction this year, probably open before the fall.
Yeah, and for anybody that's in cycling, that area is called the Bacon Run.
Oh, why is
And,
that?
Something to do with the Tyson plant.
Ah,
Usually
yeah.
Monday through Friday, it smells like bacon when you're going through there. It's really, for some people, it's probably a very pleasant smell.
Right. Were you at the opening when we finished that project?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't. I missed that.
So our friends from Tyson were there. They came out and they actually brought out several plates of bacon from the
Oh,
facility. And they
cool.
had cooked it and had it available at the ribbon cutting. So I think
Yeah.
that's the only trail ribbon cutting I've ever been to that had not just food, but food from a business that was directly on the
maybe
trail.
a bacon cutting. Okay.
So it was great.
Different kind of ribbon. So, okay. Further down the West Papio, there's more things going on. I think I saw some things on a NEAT study that you had made me aware of.
Yep, so across the entire metro area, we've been looking at kind of small, easy projects, short distance, but proportionally high benefit to the community, helping people get from where they live and work and play to a close location that might have a large physical barrier. So the name of that study was Neighborhood Expanded Access to Trails, or NEAT. And we worked, that was a federal aid project with MAPA, helping to administer the funding. And we worked on that over the last couple of years, and that just wrapped up. We've got 8 great locations that we think are very high priority projects that would be very easy to complete, that would dramatically expand access. So very similar to the Golfing Green Drive connection.
Okay.
There's one on Applewood Creek to come from the neighborhood across Portal Road, down the channel and connect to the West Papio Trail. There's another one by the Lux 96 apartment
Right,
complex
yeah.
to connect to the east and over to the existing trail network that's on the north side of
Okay.
West 6th Street. There's one in Middaloosa. There's one along Florence Boulevard. There's a couple more kind of further south, but there were 8 total priority projects, and we expect all of those to now kind of filter through to find out, is this a good project for the NRD to lead? Is this a good project for one of the cities to lead, Omaha, Bellevue, Papillion, La Vista? And then how do we advance those projects and get them moved through design and over to construction?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I found out too with working with you and talking with you over the years, is the fact that the NRD is very instrumental in developing some of these projects, but the ultimate responsibility then is usually turned over to the local municipality.
Right. And so from a design and construction perspective, sometimes the NRD takes the lead and we administer the contracts for the design and the construction. Sometimes we have the Trails Assistance Program cost share funding available to local government agencies. That means cities, counties, and even SIDs. And we pay for 50% of the cost of a project that they administer in their jurisdiction. And we are currently right now in the cost share program application cycle. So if any government agencies are listening and they want to apply for cost share between now and March 17th, we'd be glad to partner with them on trail projects.
Great, that sounds fantastic. So let me ask you, I went to a meeting last November called Active Mobility, and I believe you're somewhat involved with that to a degree. Can you explain a little bit about Active Mobility and your participation?
Sure. The Active Mobility Master Plan is something that the City of Omaha Planning Department's working on, and they're doing a great job of incorporating the existing facilities that we have and looking for new locations where facilities might be constructed in the future. So that includes not only trails, which is what I focus on and what the NRD works on,
yeah.
but also recognizing that we have opportunities and we have need for expanding the active transportation with our on-street facilities across the metro area.
Right, and that's one of the areas where you're not involved on the on-street. But I know that when I was at that meeting, I was asking them about that, because they said, well, this is what this meeting's all about, is really we want to know those areas where we need to take and look at completing some trail segments within the city of Omaha.
So yeah, and it's most critical to make sure that all the projects are aligned around the same goal of a connected network of recreation and active transportation. So although the NRD wasn't specifically involved in the Harney Street project, the ribbon cutting for the Harney project was located at Dewey Park, which is on the Turner Boulevard Trail, which the NRD did help to construct. And so that is a point where the dedicated trail network meets the on-street active transportation network, and it's easy for users to move back and forth between the two.
Right.
That's why we partnered with Heartland B-Cycle or Heartland Bike Share to see a station installed at that location. There's a Fix-It installed at that location. It's very close to transit, and so all of the different modes of transportation meet right there at the corner of Dewey Park on the Turner Boulevard Trail. So that's why it's important for trails to be a part of the Active Mobility Master Plan that's ongoing.
And I have to admit that I've seen a few more Fix-It stations pop up throughout the Omaha area, which is great. I mean, I know a couple of years ago I could have used one when I was over in Zarinsky, and now there is one over there. Just the other day, I was riding down the West Papio, and I stopped by the trailhead by the Tyson plant because my rear brake was making some noise, and I said, okay, I can make some adjustments there. All the tools are there to facilitate that. Of course, somebody was riding by and said, hey, you need any help? No, I says, I'm fine. I know what I'm doing. I just was having a noisy brake.
Good. Well, I'm glad that was there for you. The NRD worked with the Eastern Nebraska Trail Network to purchase those Fix-It stations and air pump stations a few years ago, and we've been installing them in lots of different kind of trailhead locations. And both of the locations that you mentioned were part of an Eagle Scout project. A scout came to the NRD and said, I'd like to help provide resources to people who are using the trail network. We provided the hardware, they did the installation, and so both of those were part of, I think, 5 that were installed last year. And they include a little sticker that says, if you have maintenance questions, you can call the NRD. So if any of the tools are damaged, or if the pump seems like the gasket needs to be replaced, go ahead and call the NRD office, and we'll help to make sure that it's maintained effectively so that it can do the maintenance on the bikes.
Okay, very good, very good. Let me see, any other trail updates that you can share with us? Or the city covered?
Sure. The City of Omaha is doing great work on the Keystone Trail. And so they have a couple different projects outlined, and that's essentially looking to connect the Keystone Trail from Democracy Park up to Lake Cunningham. And I think right now they have bid and are
Right.
awarding or in the process of getting into construction for the
Yeah.
northernmost phase of that.
Right, from, was it Somerset Park
Somerset.
up to Lake Cunningham, which
Right.
I saw that on the city agenda one time, at one
Right.
of the meetings.
So I think they're moving forward with the construction on that, and that'll be really interesting. They selected a new type of design. It'll be a boardwalk section on the Keystone Trail because I think it's a steep slope on the side of the road, Winninghoff Road, I think, up there.
Okay.
And so rather than trying to grade out all the way and have a flat concrete section, they'll be using some piles down below and then a boardwalk section that's elevated above. And I think that'll be the first use of a full-width trail boardwalk section in Omaha. But glad to see that they have approved that for their use, and the NRD is considering that in a couple other locations that would be really difficult to build, to grade and put in a retaining wall, probably a lot easier to physically construct and less expensive to use that boardwalk style. So that's it's a great project.
Something else I saw on the overall map that you shared with me is a trail connector going from the 144th Street by Giles over to Prairie Queen.
Yeah.
Is that something that that's coming about to fruition?
That's in process. That was one of the NEAT projects, one of the 8 prioritized projects, because there are 2 very large regional recreation areas, and between them is a large physical barrier, namely I-80. There's really no way to get from Prairie Queen over to Chaco unless you go along Giles and 132nd and take the underpass right by where the South Papio Creek goes under I-80.
Right.
And so we've identified if you're going to make it between these 2 very large, very significant locations where we know that people want to go out and enjoy a trip around the lake, get in a group like that, then you need a way between the 2. And so we're trying to figure out how do we prioritize projects that will let people make it between those 2. And the underpass of I-80 is the really tricky part.
That is. I know that I've ridden that area many times.
Yeah.
And cars do not necessarily like bicycles in that one lane.
Right.
Because that's all that's there.
Right, but we're pretty confident we've got a design that won't impact the interstate, that will allow cars to continue to move through that area successfully, and will also provide safe active transportation and recreation crossing under I-80 as well. So now we're trying to find out, is that an NRD project? Should the city of La Vista lead that project? Because it's kind of right on the edge of their jurisdiction. Might Sarpy County be involved because they have done some of the road construction there?
Right.
So we're trying to figure out which jurisdiction would be best to lead which portions of that project.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah.
I think that'll be very good. I'm looking forward to that actually being completed someday.
Yeah, well, we're working on it, and I think the city of La Vista is also very interested because they recognize the benefit to people in their community from having access back and forth between those locations.
Good, good. So, has there been any questions that I haven't asked that I should have asked so far?
Yeah, so with all the new trail work that's been under construction by all of the agencies, we need to provide that information to people. So we're in the process of updating the Paths of Discovery map.
Okay,
The
that's
physical
good.
printed map, and so it will include some of the new projects, the North Omaha Trail, Beltline Trail. Some of those dotted lines will become solid lines.
Good.
And then there'll be some new dotted lines on there also, projects that will that are anticipated to be constructed in the future. Last update was in March of 2019, so we expect to have that trail map ready for this spring, so people can use
I
it
was
this
gonna
season.
That's exciting.
Yep.
That's exciting.
Glad to have that ready for everybody. And then we're also looking into the future of how do we translate the physical map into a more updated digital tool. And we anticipate in a few years there might be a complete redesign of the trail map because this design has been the same for about 12 years now.
Yeah.
And so might be time to reconsider what type of information is available on the map and how do we convey that to people and what other updates might we make. So we'll get this physical printing done and then we'll look forward to what other types of tools can we make available for people using the trails.
Yeah, and I know that that map is generally available at a lot of the local bike shops. And I know the Bellevue Bicycle Club, which I am a past president, so there's full disclosure there. We distribute those maps at a number of kiosks in the trailhead areas around the metro area. And it is very well received. So it's one of those things where I've seen, we've probably distributed 3,000 to 4,000 of those maps over the last several years.
Great, appreciate your work on that. I think the last order number was, I want to say 40,000. So we've done a huge number of them, and that's over about 4 years of distribution. So people really like them. They're very helpful when you're out there. It's a good reminder of other things that you might not have been to before.
Yeah.
So yeah, appreciate your help with the distribution.
Yeah, well, we certainly think it's a great service to the community. That's one of the reasons that we're doing it.
Yeah.
So, okay, is there anything that, let's say, any of our viewers might be able to help and contribute? I mean, if you need some input, how would they contact you, or what would you suggest?
Yeah, the papionrd.org website is a great way to get information about trails that we're working on. We are also in the process of a comprehensive website update in the future. But there is information under the Recreation tab about all the trails. It's got a PDF version of the map.
Right.
We have a great story map, which is a specific online kind of website for the 8 prioritized projects from the NEAT study. And so there's a link for that, which maybe you can share. And,
Right, I've got that link, and we'll get it onto the show here so people can actually do that.
Right, and we're trying to make all of that information available to people in the community so that they can interact with the NEAT study and see which projects we did study. There were 8 that got kind of a technical analysis. There were 7 more that we looked at briefly, but we decided they're probably a little more difficult. Let's wait on those for now. And we also identified a whole bunch of other projects that we think could be done in the future. So we might do an additional version of a NEAT 2 or a NEATer study in the future. And so if people have suggestions about short trail connections that would provide high benefit to the community, email address and phone number is on the Papio NRD website.
Okay.
You can catch us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, just anywhere you find organizations, we're there.
And that's one thing about the Papio NRD. They're not just in Omaha. You're much broader than that. What is your range?
Yeah, all of Sarpy County, all of Douglas County, all of Washington County. That's most of the metro area. And then Thurston, Dakota, Burt counties. So the 6 counties along the Missouri River is our territory, and then a tiny piece outside of that. But relative to the overall size of the jurisdiction, those 6 counties are where most of our work is.
Okay. Well, thank you, Eric, for coming and giving us an update. It's great. I know it's probably drinking from the fire hose today because you're just a fountain of information and have so much to share. So I appreciate you coming on, and I just want to remind everybody that's watching to pedal on.